In this episode of Motive Garage presented by Spares Box, it's time to finalise getting our R32 GT-R ready to head to the USA. In our last episode on the R32 GT-R, you saw that we got it running, we got an initial tune in it, and I got to drive it around and see what it's like. Well, there was still a lot left to do. And the first thing I need to do is get the new Shockworks coilovers set up in the car and get in alignment. So, we're sending the car off to DNA Autosport.
Hi, my name's Andre Nader. I'm the owner here at DNA Autosport, and today we're going to go through what we believe is the most detailed suspension setup we can give to this Skyline here in an attempt to make it one of the best on the road. Here at DNA Autosport, our primary focus is suspension and chassis development. So whether that begins with something as simple as a wheel alignment, or if it extends out to a complete bespoke build of a set of coilovers or suspension for a given vehicle, that's our forte. So here today we have Andrew's R32 GT-R Skyline, and we are essentially the last piece of the puzzle. Andrew's gone through a fair bit of development with the car, both from a chassis and suspension development, alongside a lot of the engine modifications that he's done. And we're here today to put the chassis and the suspension all in a nice place so that he can comfortably run an 8 on Sunday and then drive to work on Monday. With most things in life, it's almost impossible to have 100% of everything. However, if we were to look at the Skyline behind us, we can sort of marry up what's important for a drag setup as well as a street setup a little bit closer than we could a circuit and a street setup. In order to achieve something like this, obviously the car needs to have a fair bit of adjustment, and that adjustment comes from either aftermarket control arms or the aftermarket coilover suspension that's currently fitted to the car. This allows us to put the camber, the caster, the toe on each axle exactly where we want it, but also we can dictate the ride height as well as the damping control through the use of the coilovers. Typically, we would run a little bit of toe in on the rear axle, but we would also run a little bit of toe in on the front axle. Now, this isn't common for a lot of cars. However, some road cars do actually enjoy this, the Skyline being one of them. Looking at this car from a drag racing perspective, obviously when it's on our aligners, we are looking at the static alignment, which is the car stationary at its ride height, not moving. Now, all of the adjustments that we make statically are in order to ensure that the alignment ends up where we want dynamically. And essentially what that means is we're trying to ensure that all the geometry and everything settles to a point once Andrew comes off the button and all 1200 horsepower attempts to make its way to the ground. As it is with any car that rolls through our door, the first thing that we'll do is what we call a set down. So we take a series of measurements, ride heights, alignment, things like that, droop travel, for example, if it's got coilovers, and we write all of those notes down. And then from there, we want to slowly massage everything to get it extremely close to where we want it. Because as I'm sure some people know, if you adjust ride height, it affects alignment. If you adjust alignment, it affects ride height. So ideally, we need to get everything exactly where we want it at the alignment that we want. Once the alignment and the heights are where we need them to be, and we take a measurement or a weight reading from each corner of the car. From there, again, we lean on our experience and our understanding of each individual chassis to know where we would like more weight, where we need less weight, and things like that. And in order to do this, we actually use the coilovers themselves. We're going to go around the car and slowly adjust each of the preloads in order to put the weight on each corner exactly where we want it. Not just as a total figure, so we're not just saying, you know, we want 400 kilos on this corner. We're looking at it as a percentage of the car, front percentage to rear percentage, things like that. An important part of this process is, of course, the road test after the setup. Now, for some cars, we have the luxury of doing that. Like, you know, registered cars and road cars, we can then take them out afterwards and get a feel of how the setup reacts to being on the road. However, with some cars, like Andrew's car or GT3 Cup car, we don't have that luxury. So we rely on track testing. We can then from there make small tweaks at the track with all the adjustment that we have available to us, but it gives us a good understanding of where the chassis is at, where the setup's at, and how it's actually reacting to the VHT surface. Once the car's been tested and dialed in, I guess the next steps really come down to the goals of the driver. Are they happy to take it off the road and make it purely a drag car, or do they still want to have that run a number on Sunday, drive it on the road on Monday? We'll have to wait and find out.
So a big thank you to the guys from DNA for sorting out the alignment on the car, because I was pretty busy with GT-R Festival. Well, things got even busier and I had to head to the UK for Goodwood. So while I was gone, I dropped the car off at CRD and let Con work his magic with the larger rear housing on the car. And all I'll say is wow.
We've got Andrew Hawkins' car here on the dyno again. We've gone up to a 128 rear housing to try and get some more top end out of it and drop a bit of back pressure out of it. On the low boost, it's gone from at 25 pounds. We've gone from making 640 kilowatts up to 717 kilowatts. Up to about 4,000 RPM, it's pretty much identical. About the 5,000 RPM mark, I've purposely dropped a little bit of boost out of it. And then from about 6.5 onwards, it's pretty much all over the other one. The reason I dropped a bit of boost out of the mid-range was just keep the car a bit more stable, ease that pressure on the motor. At the end of the day, you don't need 30 pounds at 5,000 RPM. So we've gone up to about 33 PSI on this. Same sort of thing in the middle, it's lost a little bit, mainly because of the, I guess, torque management side of things. Up top, we've gone from making 1100 to 1150 horsepower at 33 pounds. The larger rear housings made the motor make power much easier because it's a lot more efficient. There's not as much back pressure in the thing, so the motor's obviously breathing a lot better. It'll definitely help relieve the pressure on the motor and take a bit of load off those bearings. I haven't seen much of a downside because we didn't really lose much response going from the smaller heat rear to the 1.28. The whole combo's pretty well dialed in and very efficient. So I'm going to say that turbo at around that 25 pound mark, it's in a sweet spot and it's really starting to work. So that larger rear has made it obviously much more efficient, which allows it to make more power at that lower boost.
So the big question you're probably all asking is, can you tell the difference on the street, the drivability between the 101 and the 128 rear housing? And my honest answer to that is no. Basically no difference down low when it came onto boost. In fact, if anything, Con was pulling boost out of it, basically to, I guess, control the initial hit of torque. What a lot of people don't understand about GT-Rs is that instant hit of torque and having peak torque too low, that's where they crush bearings, although not so much an issue with the wide journal crank, but it's also where they split blocks, it's where they lift the head, that's where peak cylinder cylinder pressure occurs because horsepower is based on torque over time, right? But torque is what breaks things. So by managing that mid-range torque, we can look after the engine, look after the drivetrain, drive shaft stay intact longer, the car's less aggressive, it's better to drive. There's a lot of reasons to do it. Does it feel slower on the initial hit? Of course it does. It's not as violent, but the car in the real world is definitely faster and nicer to drive. And that's what tuning a GT-R is all about. And that's what Con knows all about with these things. And it's why the car has been relatively reliable its entire life, is just managing that mid-range torque. So obviously now it's off the dyno. The next thing we need to do is do a systems check at the drag strip. We've got a new clutch in it, new gearbox. We've got a bunch of new sensors. We've got a new ECU. There's a lot to get working and make sure it works correctly. So we're going to head to the drag strip now and basically see if everything is working as it should. We're not going to be aiming for a PB. We just want to go from A to B, make sure everything works, because we want to set the car up in the USA on the track and atmospheric conditions in Texas, and rather beat on the car here, well, we'd rather do it for you guys over there. So let's go to Sydney Dragway for a Street 20 test day. So the entire purpose of the first run was just to basically go through gears. Why is that? Well, firstly, this combination basically hasn't been driven in anger. So I wanted to make sure of a few things. I wanted to make sure that the flat shift was working correctly on the new billet sequential. I needed to make sure the car went straight, obviously after Shockworks coilovers, a new alignment that is in the car. And basically that it just didn't have any issues, didn't misfire, didn't have any problems. I wasn't trying to launch it on the first one. So yeah, it did exactly what it needed to do. The target boost pressure was 30, but it did run a little bit more when it's loaded up. Very efficient setup. So now Con's turned the launch control on. If it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not too worried, but I'm going to run it on the full power setting now, which is 32 pound, but it will probably end up being a little bit more. And we'll just see what it does.
You done talking, mate?
Yeah. Do you want to start it up? Here we go. So for the second run, we turned on the launch control, but obviously it was the first time using it. And also the sintered iron direct clutch. It actually needed to do a launch first to kind of, I guess, wear the thing in and settle it to where it needs to be. So the first run was never going to be anything special. We actually turned the boost down a little bit because in the first run, the target boost versus real life boost, the real life was a bit higher. So we adjusted a little bit. So really the boost on this run was actually lower in the lower gears and was the same 33 pound in fifth gear. So we went faster mile an hour just because we did a full pass this time, but we actually did it with less power than we did the first run of the 155. So that was 157 miles, only a 9.4. But like I said, just a systems check. The clutch now feels totally different after that run, which we knew it would do. But looking at all the logs, man, everything is perfect. The RPM trace, there's no trigger issues. The oil pressure is perfect with the PRP billet dry sump kit. At 9,000 RPM in 5th gear, it has 101 PSI of oil pressure. It's pretty good. Fuel pressure trace is perfect along with boost pressure. I can't find anything wrong with this car. Even temperature and stuff like that is spot on. Like, it doesn't get over 80 odd degrees. EGTs are perfect. This car just makes this power, that high 150s power, this car just does it so easily and efficiently. But what we have decided to do is pack it up after 2 runs, and the reason for that is we could sit here all day trying to run a PB, but then we go over to the USA, the track's different, the altitude's different, and we've actually got to test again. So rather than put all the stress and strain on the car, push big power into the cast block, which, as you know, you just don't know how long a cast block's going to last when you're at this power level. I want to be able to do a lot of work with this car in the US, so we figured after those 2 runs, pack it up, put it in the container, send it over, and that's basically it. So as of right now, the car systems check is good. When we get to the US, we're probably going to install a PRP billet rear diff and shafts in it. So we're going to take some spares over, but right now the car is all ready to go to the USA. Just needs a wash and put it in the container. See you there. Texas Motorplex, 15th to 17th, PRP GT-R Festival USA. We're coming. The Platinum Racing Products GT-R Festival, presented by Pennzoil, HKS USA, Cars from Japan and Modi Video, is heading to the USA on November 15th through 17th at Texas Motorplex. Full info, entries and tickets available at gtrfestival.com. The same successful formula used in Australia is being done even bigger, Texas style. And yes, we're bringing some of our mates from down under, including the world's quickest GT-R Juntu, the Modi Video R32, RHM R34 GT-R, and more. It is a festival of all things GT-R, but is open to any Nissan and has something for everyone, both entrant and spectator. There is drag racing with multiple classes and categories. There is a day of roll racing, a massive lineup of special guests and YouTubers from Japan, Australia and USA.
The Australians are having GT-R Festival here in Texas in November, and I want to come out hot for that.
Drifting demos and rides, the Pennzoil Autocross Arena, elite car show with new builds unveiled, a huge Traders Alley with the latest and greatest products, kids rides and entertainment, including a kangaroo. Yes, you heard that correctly, kangaroo. Show and shine open to all Nissans. There's oil down entertainment, DJs and giveaways. There is a massive car meet open to any model of Nissan who simply just wants to get amongst it. And there is super seat and VIP ticket options for spectators. See you in Texas for the Platinum Racing Products GT-R Festival USA, presented by Pennzoil, HKS USA, Cars from Japan and Modi Video. Texas Motorplex, November 15th through 17th. For more event information, including schedules, categories and entry types, spectator and VIP tickets, car entries, media applications and vendor and sponsor inquiries, head to the website gtrfestival.com.